So hello guys, welcome to this tutorial. So in this tutorial I'll be talking about strings in Python. String is actually the most widely used data type in Python. So it is actually immutable. You cannot modify a string. So let's get started. So we can declare a string both in single quotes and double quotes. For example, I can say my string is equal to hello world. Yeah. You can also use double quotes instead of single quotes. So I can just remove this and this, and if I just print my string, if I just run this program, okay, so if I just print my string and if I just run the program, so you can see that hello world has been printed. So you can either use both single quotes and double quotes, but there are a few exceptions. For example, let me switch back to single quotes here, and so we have a few exceptions here. So I am actually declaring a new string, maybe hello worlds. So if I say hello worlds, and if I say hello worlds like this, so there is an apostrophe here, so that is actually creating problems with this single quote. So if I run this, this will be an error. So if I just run this, you can see that we have a syntax error here. It's called invalid syntax. So we have a lot of ways, or mainly two ways, to fix this. So the first way is to actually add or use double quotes. So instead of single quotes, we can switch to double quotes. So yeah, and for apostrophe we use this thing. And now if I run this, you can see that hello world has been printed. And there is a second option too, and that is, okay, so the second method is to actually use a backslash and a quote here. So if I run this program, you can see that it is printed correctly as hello worlds. So yeah, you have to use either this or double quotes. So for actually for multiple lines, we also have another type. Okay, let's clear this. Oh, we also have this. So I can say hello world. So this method is actually used for multiple lines. So this is either used for documentation or for strings that have multiple lines. So I can actually declare multiple lines inside this. This is usually used for documentation purposes. Okay, so next we are actually, okay, let me just clear this. So next we are actually going to discuss about on how to access a string in Python. For example, I'll declare a string here called my string and set it to maybe hello world or whatever you want to call it. So now in order to actually access the string, you can say, you can do the same thing that we did with list here. So I can maybe say my string of index 1, and if I run the program, you get E here, because this is the 0th index and this is the first index. So we have actually asked for the first index here, so 1 has been printed successfully. And we can also extract a part of the string. Say for example, I only want this hello here, so I can say maybe from starting from 0 2 3 4. So we can say 0 2 5, and if I run the program, we get hello here. So it starts from 0 here, so from 0 1 2 3 4, and it doesn't print the fifth element, because yeah, if you say from 0 to 5, the fifth element is actually excluded. So if I just say 4 here, it will not print the last O, so it will only print hell here. So we needed hello here, so we use 5 here. So we can also use a step index here. So for example, I had, for actually using the step index, we have to add an additional colon. So this will actually print the every second element of this. So starting from here, then L and then O, and then this space is excluded, and then W, and then R, and then D. So yeah, this actually prints the every second element. So this is called the step index. We have discussed about this before. So the next thing we are going to take a look at is addition or adding of strings. So let me just clear this out. So for adding strings, say I have two strings here. Let me just remove this world from here, and say I have a name here, maybe name, and set it to John. So I'm just going to combine this string and say hello John. So we have to say a new string. We'll declare a new variable called new string. So we cannot modify this original string because string is immutable. So we are creating a new string here, and we'll call it my string plus. So we need a space here. If we just simply say my name plus string, and if I run the program, or I just have to print this as well. So if I say print new string, and if I run this program, we can see that we need a space here. So for that we can say a single quote and a space, and then again plus. So if I run this program, you can see that we get a space here and it has printed hello world. So this is how we combine strings. So now let's discuss on how to actually iterate through a string. So I'll declare a variable called my string, and I'll say how are you. So how are you. So for iterating this, we use for loop as usual. So I can say maybe for uh, I in my string, and if I just print I, we can run the program. We can see that we have actually got the individual elements of this string. So this is how we iterate over this string. So we can also check if an element exists in a string or not. So using the if statement, so I can maybe say, okay, we can also check if an element exists in a string using the if statement. So for example, I can say if how in my string print yes. So it will actually print if how exists in the string, else it will actually print no. And if I just run this program, we get an S here, which means how exists. So if I just say something else, and if I run the program, we get no here because this string doesn't exist. We can actually check for a single word. For example, I say y actually. So if I just run this, we can say we get yes because y actually exists here. So in this u. Okay, so the next thing we are going to discuss is about the strip method. So say for example, I have some unwanted spaces here. Okay, these are all needed spaces. So say I have some unwanted spaces here that we don't need. So to actually remove such spaces, we have a method. So we'll say my string dot, or my string is equal to my string dot strip. And now if I print my string, and if we just run the program, you can see that this unwanted spaces have been removed. So if we just don't do this, if we just normally run the program, you can see that we have a lot of unwanted spaces here and here as well. So yeah, that is why we use this method. So if I just uncomment that, and if I run it again, you can see that unwanted white spaces have been removed. So this is the use of the strip method in Python. This is for strings. So we also have some other methods like, okay, we can actually remove these unwanted white spaces. So we also have the my string dot upper method. So if I just run the program, or we have to say my string is equal to my string dot upper method, and if I run the program, you can see that this has been converted into an uppercase. So if I just copy this and paste this here, so now this is actually an uppercase thing. So now if I just want to convert this into a lowercase, uh, I want to convert this into lowercase, so I can say my string is equal to my string dot lower, and if I run the program, this has been converted into lower string. So we have another method called to check if a string starts with a particular character or a word. So say for an example, I want to check if this string uh, starts with how or h. So I can say maybe my string is equal to my string dot starts with, and I can say h, and let's print it. I get true here because it indeed starts with h. So if I just change this to something like q, or maybe, and if I run this program, I get false, which means it doesn't start with this. So we can actually search for a word. So I say how here, and if I run the program, we can see that we still get true because it starts with how here, and that is what we wanted to ask. So we also can check if a string ends with a particular word or a particular letter. So I can say my string is equal to my string dot ends with. So if I say y here and if I run the program, we get true here because it indeed ends with u. And if I just say h here and if I run the program, I get false here because it is not the ending character. I can also search for words, and it is indeed true because it ends with u here. We can also find a particular string using, or a particular word or a particular letter using a method. We can say my string is my string dot find, and we can search for something, maybe h, and if I run the program, we can see we are getting its index. So h is in the first index, so that is why we are getting 0 here. I can maybe search for o, and if I run the program, I'm getting 1 because o is in the first position. We also have a count method, so we say my string is equal to my string dot count, and so the next method we are going to discuss is the count method. So for example, I'll say my string is equal to my string dot count, and I say h. So this will count the number of h's in this string called my string. So if I run this, we have one h here. So now if I just change this to o and run the program again, we get 2 here because we have 2 o's here. So this is how the count method works. You can actually check the number of items inside this string with this count method. Now we also have the replace method. For example, I can say we have to say my string is equal to my string dot replace. We can replace how with y maybe. So yeah, this is just for seeing how that works. I know it's grammatically wrong, but yeah, if we just, so we get y are you here. So the next thing we are going to discuss is how to convert a string into a list. So we have a string here. So we have a string here called my string. So if I just need to convert this to list, I can say my string is equal to my string dot split. Now if I just run this program, you can see that it has been converted to a list. Now this is a list, and so this separation is actually by looking this white spaces here. So by default this program will actually check for white spaces or spaces here. So if you just have a string like this where you have commas and not spaces, if you just run this program, that won't work. So now this has been converted to a single string. So if you just want to do separation that way, you can say comma here and rerun the program, and you can see that now it has actually worked. Now it has been separated by commas. Okay, now let's see how to convert list to a string. So now let's see how to convert uh, a list to a string here. So I have a list with these items inside, and now to convert this into a string, I can say new string is equal to an empty string here dot join method, and we have to say my list here. And if I print the new string and if I run the program, you can see it has been converted into a new list. Okay, so that is everything about join methods. So now let's discuss about string formatting. So there are a lot of ways to do string formatting. There are old ways and there are new ways. So let's discuss some of the old ways first, and then we'll come to the newer ways. By newer ways, I mean after Python 3.6, we have a formatted string that we can actually use to format a string. So let's get started. So let's declare a variable here called whatever you want. I can say this is hello. So now I say print, and inside a quote I say the variable is, and then I can say to actually print out this variable here, what I have to say is %s, and then after that I can say %var. So the Python interpreter will actually understand we have a placeholder here, and it will actually replace this s with a variable here, So if I run the program, you can see that the variable is hello has been printed. So now instead of a string here, let's say we have an integer or a number here. So let's say 10. So now we have to replace this s. So we cannot use this s again. We have to replace this with d, short form for decimal integer. So if I run this program again, we get that the variable is 10. Okay, now say we have a 10.12 here or something here, and if we just want to print this, we need %f, short form for %floating points. And now if I run this, you get this particular floating point number here. So say you just don't want these many numbers here, you only want the last or the two numbers after this decimal or after this point. So you can say after this f, you can say dot 2, so which means you only need the two numbers here. So if I run this, you can see that the only the two numbers after this decimal point has been printed out. So this is actually a very old method. We don't use this very much right now. So we also have another method. Also, this one is also pretty old. So the next method for formatting strings is the dot format method. So I'll have a variable here again, maybe 10, and then we can print. We can say the variable is, and then after that we have to have this braces, curly braces, and I say dot format, and we have to say what. So now if I just run this program, you can see that the variable is 10 has been printed out. Okay, so if I say this variable is, then I have to open up a curly braces here, and I have to say dot format and to variable here, and if I run this program, you can see this variable is 10 has been printed out. So say I need actually multiple variables, so I have a second variable var2 maybe, and this 11. So I can say is the variable is this, and this again we can have to declare a second braces, and we have to declare a second variable here. Now if I run this, we get 10 and 11. So this is how we declare multiple variables for strings or inside strings. So say I have a decimal number here or a floating point number here, so I can say the first braces we can say dot colon dot 2f, and if I run this program, you can see that only the 2 places after decimals have been picked up here. So what this does is this will actually remove all the unwanted decimal places. We only want 2 decimal places after this decimal or after this point here, so we can filter out the remaining using this method. So the final and the newest method, and probably the best method we are going to be discussing today, is the f-string method or the formatted string method here. So to print the same thing here, we can use the formatted string, and this is available from Python 3.6. so if you are using a later version like after Python 3.6, then you should be able to do this, and this is the best option. So if I say print, so what I have to say is f, and single quotes or double quotes, you can use any one of them, single or double, so I'll use single here, and I can say the variable is, I can say, I can open a curly braces here, and inside this I say var. I say var1 and var2. I can declare multiple variables using multiple curly braces here. So if I just print it now, you can see that we get to print this. So this is about string formatting. So have discussed about everything about string formatting and everything about strings possible.